Hey, welcome everybody. This is Captain Joe and Jonny Twobears from the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. It's happy Thursday for some folks. Today's the kickoff of the NFL season, and for us, it's also part two of having Jimmie Barr on with us. But it was a great episode last week. I was actually able to share it with some friends who consider themselves non-believers, and they were really interested in his story just because of the fact that, they were able to go back and watch the episode when he was on TV. But anyways, Jonny, how are you doing?
Good, man. Doing good. Just getting stuff done for work and all kinds of other stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Well, let me let you know. Let me let everybody know how my day's been.
Okay.
Okay, you know how you get a coffee pot, and on one side it's got the 1 cup coffee maker,
Yeah.
and on the other side you make a whole pot.
Yep.
Well, right before we came on here, I went to make myself a nice little cup of coffee, and I go back to retrieve my cup of coffee, and apparently I made an entire pot on top of my countertop because I picked the wrong side of the coffee maker. That's how my day's been.
Oh man. So was Mrs. Twobears mad?
Oh no, she was gone. She did not witness it.
Oh, that's good.
It's not the first time, so all there would have been involved is maybe throwing me a couple towels and a head shake. Like there he goes again.
Well, we need to go ahead and we need to change her name again to a better name as making cups of coffee for Twobears.
Oh, what a day! What a day, man.
Well, hey, you've also had some pretty cool things going on in your at-home research. When I say at-home, you have the luxury of being able to step outside your back door and have have a great research area. I mean, when I say back door, I mean, heck, you even got some audio or suspected audio of them being on your back porch. But
yeah,
that's
yeah.
So yeah.
I got excited there for a minute. I had the audio. I made a video about that sounds strangely familiar to the one I got last winter, to where they were on the back deck. Sounds very familiar. That was cool. And then, but I had to pull back on the reins a little bit. As whoever's been watching here lately, I was going to do a 40 days of live.
That's right.
Try to do 40 days in the field and do lives for 40 minutes, right? And I explained that it'd probably be some skipping around, life in general, but that was the basic premise. Well, before I even got to that point, I'd come up with the idea, and before I even launched to do that, I had something happen that I wasn't sure I was going to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it because it's relevant. A couple days prior, I got a phone call from my wife, and she says, hey, can you hear a drone when it's flying? And I said, yeah, you can hear a drone. She said, well, I can't see it, but I hear it. And I told her, I'm like, well, look, find a tree with low-hanging branches, hang out there. Don't move around, and wait and see what happens. Sure enough, a drone comes out, and she sends me video of it. Now, it may have nothing to do with what's going on around here. It could be perverts or children. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the thing is, it did it 3 times. It hung around for 10 minutes, and it would go around the perimeter of my property. It also hung out in what I consider sensitive areas right behind my property. It only stayed on my property, and then it would leave. And then 15, 20 minutes later, I'm assuming after a battery change, it would come back. And it did that 3 times. I don't like it. It may have nothing to do with anything that's going on around here. But if it does, I got to kind of take that into consideration. I'll never know, unless I shoot it down and then somebody comes looking for the drone, which I don't think that'll happen. But so that was like, I really don't know but I went ahead and launched. And then a couple days, I went to the management area. I went there without doing a live. I looked around. I found this particular spot. I really think it has potential. I start my lives. I go back there. I go to this particular area. And while I'm doing the live, I find what may or may not be a track. I don't know. It wasn't good enough, but it was about 5 inches long. It looked like the front part of the toes had hit and then pushed the dirt up. And then the heel had barely touched in the back and lifted up and left a perfect ring, like where a heel just barely touched. I went over that. I looked at it. Didn't make a huge deal, but I showed it to everybody during the live. I get done. That was, a week ago now. I'm going through the video, and I had a rear-facing thermal camera attached to me. And from what I've seen so far in this video, before I go down there and find that track, when I'm setting everything up and I turn around to go down this embankment, to go down to that area, up in the tree, there is a branch that is straight. The tree is bent down like this, and then a face pops up. Down below it, there's another white something, another heat signature. There's some moving around. I sent Joe and them copies of some screenshots. There definitely looks like a face.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen going through it, it's not 100% at all. It's not the Patterson film. It's just enough for me to think that maybe I'm on to him. But I can't say that definitely. But with all that combined, possibly being back on, and then the drone, I stopped. I put a pause on everything. I'm like, wait a second. I need to reevaluate this, because mainly I just don't need to be broadcasting where I'm going to be and at what time I'm going to be there and what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I need to kind of circle the wagons a little bit. That's not going to stop me from doing what I'm doing. But when it comes to the drone thing, I don't want to be overly paranoid. Odds are nobody cares about what I'm doing. But as a husband and a father, I've got to say that may be a problem. Not that I'm really worried about it. I'm really not worried about a drone. I mean, it's an invasion of privacy. But if it is your drone and you're watching, buy a backup drone, because I'm going to take it out whenever I can. And do not come on my property. You've been warned. So that's what I'm going to say publicly. Again, it could be kids, perverts. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what's going on. But I am going to quit advertising exactly what I'm doing and when I'm doing it a little bit. I'm going to pull back on that. Now, I've always done that because of, I would just want to show everybody what I'm doing in the process, and, just in the spirit of disclosure and learning and sharing. But I'm going to have to pull back on the reins a little bit. So,
yeah, man. And there's nothing wrong with having some level of OPSEC with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because again, this is your back door, right outside your back door, your personal property, your family's property. Like you said, you got a wife and you got your kids there. Yeah, they don't need to be snooped on.
No,
so.
And I've always said that this is fun. It's super entertaining. I love doing it. It's unbelievably interesting, and I feel like it's almost like it's a gift. You know what I'm saying? That I'm in like a real special position. But if they ever cross a line, I will turn my yard into Fallujah. And then if it starts bringing humans, you know what I'm saying? So, anyway, that's what's been going on. That's why I'm not doing the lives, but some pretty cool stuff is happening at the same time. So,
That's good.
So anyway, that's enough about me. Let's get to Jimmie, man.
Yeah, man. Jimmie, are you there? You still there? You soaking in the pool? Nope.
There he is.
What's up, guys?
Hey,
What's up,
Jimmie.
man?
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming back on.
He's literally in the pool.
In the pool.
He is.
Yes.
So Jimmie, last week's episode was really good because I was able to let some friends who are non-believers listen, and whether it be your story, your way of describing, your childhood experience and encounter, even all the way up to your trip to Tennessee. It's funny because, like, my friends, like, damn, what happened? We're like, so like, hey, we're gonna get Jimmie on for part 2. And so one of the neatest things is like, and Jonny will tell you, man, I have been very blessed since the military to be able to work and do some things in remarkable industries, from the outdoor TV, from hunting shows and whatnot, that type of community to golf and you name it, and in those travels, whatnot, you get to meet with some great folks, some of them, like, we had a listener from people from Jack Link's Beef Jerky, right? And that's the whole messing with Sasquatch. And it's so funny because, in their industry, they know they sell a ton of beef jerky to hunters and fishermen and hikers and stuff like that. And they were interested in talking to me about, the golf side of things that I do. And then I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I also do this Bigfoot podcast. And they're like, no way. There's podcasts about Bigfoot? I'm like, dude, I said, dude, there's a whole ton of Bigfoot podcasts, but it's funny because, like, these guys are like, probably, they're $1 billion with a B, company with a Sasquatch mascot, right?
Yeah.
And they don't think anything about the Bigfoot community,
Right.
because it's, it's like, it's a mascot to them, and they're doing great and whatnot. So they sent Jonny and I this box this past week of shirts, and whatnot. So Jonny, we got to get yours shipped over to you. But anyways, and so they're like, man, we need to start giving out some, like, Jack Link's care packages on you guys' podcast. I'm like, dude, people love that,
Oh, yeah.
They would.
but it's funny because, like, all of a sudden, like,
drawings for them and stuff like that. Yeah.
well, then all of a sudden it sounded like, there's a Bigfoot podcast, I was like, yeah, and so too bad, everyone. I got them locked up, so don't go reaching out to them. So no, but the remarkable thing was your story, man, and I don't know, it's because when we left on part 1's interview with you, it was, you started talking about your trip to Tennessee and all that, and then that's when Jonny said, "All right, no more. We got to save that because we could tell that, okay, we're gonna have another good 45 minutes to an hour from that."
I didn't know exactly what was coming, but I could tell by the way. I mean, it obviously had an effect on you, Jimmie. I knew
it still does.
I knew something was coming, so I was like, wait,
Yeah.
hold on, let's let's do this the right way.
Yeah. So Jimmie, I guess let's just kind of like step back. Your trip to Tennessee, and then you're talking about when you had parked and let out your
from the very beginning.
Your Sebastian Bach, howl.
Yeah, absolutely. My Sebastian Bach scream. So it all kind of boils down to the start of why I was even there was I'd been doing music for 2.5 decades, but it's been all covers. I've never really done originals, and I started doing originals, and I just changed genres from the 80s metal, rock and roll to country rock type stuff. And one of my songs was submitted to the Josie Music Awards, which was held in Gatlinburg, and in Tennessee. The award show was in Dollywood. The pre-ceremony show was held at Blake Shelton's club, Old Reds. But that's why I was going up there. You know, I had Bigfoot, wasn't on the brain, man. It wasn't on the brain. This drive, maybe I'll finally get recognized. It'd be great to be recognized for the work that you put into something, for so long. And so that was what was in my head, not Bigfoot. I wasn't thinking about Bigfoot until I got off of 40 on Foothills Parkway and started heading west towards Cosby, Illinois. And once I got off of 40, started heading west towards Cosby on the Foothills Parkway. There's these overlooks, and there's like 4 of them. And the very first one I came to was overlook number 4. But as I was coming up to it, I didn't know there was going to be one there. I hadn't got to it yet, but I was like, this thought popped in my head, man. This looks like some really squatchy stuff, I mean, this is. I love the mountains. I love Chattanooga area. I love the way the mountains look there. I love seeing the waterfalls going down the mountains as you're driving through, and whatnot. And this overlook popped up, and I drove up to it, and I pulled along the sidewalk, and there's a picture of the sidewalk. Where the little arrows are showing you the directions for Google is where I parked, right up against the curb. You get on that sidewalk and take 2 or 3 steps, it's a 200 or 300 foot fall. There's no rope, there's no railing, there's no gonna save your life device there. And so I got out with my truck running, and just took the scenery in, and that thought popped in my head. You should do one of them silly Matt Moneymaker calls, or whoever it is or whatever. And I don't know how he does his calls. I mean, I've seen him a million times. I never paid much attention, but I knew how I can do an 80s metal yell. Okay. And so I did a big old high pitched yell, out there to this big old valley, and I was wanting to hear, this echo return of what I did, and after about 2 or 3 seconds in my head, I said, you dummy, you're not going to hear anything. You just yelled way out to a great big open. There's nothing for it to bounce off. And as soon as I did that, 2 or 3 seconds go by, and I got yelled at / roared at by something that sounded like a giant humanoid caveman. It had 2 different tones in it. It had a low tone and a medium tone. When I did my yell that way, and there was no reason for me to record. I didn't have my phone out. I wasn't expecting anything to happen. It's just the Bigfoot wasn't on my mind until I pulled over to see this big scenery. I looked around. There was no cars around. I just did it, and then something roared at me from behind, and it just had this big, rah! But it was way louder. If you show the next picture on where it came from across the street, I could feel the vibration in my pants. If you show the next picture, I don't know if you can make that any bigger or whatnot, but no. At least on my end, it's teeny tiny. But it came from right in there, and instantly I froze. I got stupid excited, stupid scared, stupid anxious, and I went around the back of my truck, got in the driver's side, which was on the mountain side. I got on the phone with my wife. I'm stupid excited. I'm like, oh my God. You'll never believe what just happened. I told her what happened. I showed her, I video called her. I wanted her to see this. And I'm showing her, and she's like, okay. Focus. You just drove all this way. Don't do anything stupid. You're by yourself. Go to the hotel, check in. You're by yourself. And, and I'm like, babe, I'm in my flip-flops. I'm not going up there, and I assured her that I wasn't going to go up there. And she hung up, and I changed into my hiking boots. They're in my truck, but
you assured her you weren't going up there, and then right after
right,
phone,
but it was when I hung up. The thing was, there's moments in your life that come to you, and you're like, I am never not gonna know what happens from this moment if I don't, and I'm going to kick myself in my face for the rest of my life if I don't. So I put my boots on. I didn't have a walking stick or anything. I just went up there, and the pictures right there that you have, those are from a year later.
Oh wow.
So that's actually even fuller in that picture than what it was. But it's still in September. When I went up there, it was September 2019, September 19th, 2020. I think it was 2020 or 2019, but it was September 19th when I went there. And so I went up there, but I had to go up a different. I couldn't go straight across the street because the path of resistance was just almost straight up in a spot. I had to go just, I don't know, 15 yards farther to the right when you're looking at the mountainside. And I went up the path of least resistance, and I didn't even bother looking at the ground because as soon as I got in there,
Joe, are you
there
trying to make
was
everybody drunk?
Yeah.
as soon yeah, if you switch to the mountainside picture, everybody would be like, oh, okay, he went up in that. But as I went up, there was no reason for me. As soon as I got into the trees, there was no reason for me to look at the ground for anything because there was just inches and inches and inches of leaf litter. It was like I was walking in the fall. So there was, I don't know how many years worth of leaf litter just piled up. So I didn't even pay attention to the ground. And my thought process is when you're going up a mountain and you're wanting to find something, I didn't even think about it. It's just how I figured it in my head. I just did it. When you're looking up a hill, a mountain, you've got the ground in front of you. You've got the trees, and you're seeing the canopy as well from the trees above you as you're looking up. And it's a lot to filter through when you're just looking for one thing. So my thought process was, I want to go higher than where I think this came from and look down so I don't have to see any canopy. I can just see all these trees, something moving horizontal in a vertical world, you know? So that's why I went up. And as I'm walking up, there was a down tree that fell uphill. So there was a root ball, but it was a root ball. And I've seen root balls. I wasn't worried about anything. So I'm walking up and I'm getting closer. And in mid stride, it wasn't a voice. It wasn't mind speak. It was a thought. While I'm still thinking and analyzing and looking around, a thought interrupted my thought, like a projected thought almost. I don't know how else to explain it, but that. And the thought said, do not take another step. It'll be very bad if you do. In mid stride, when I planted my foot, I had made up my mind. You're not taking another step that direction. And it wasn't my thought. I'm thinking about things already, looking and analyzing. And hey, something came through, interrupted my thought of do not take another step. It'll be very bad if you do. So I was like, well, I wanted to go up higher and then cut over and look down because I thought it was over this way more, but I wanted to be far enough away that if I went straight at it, it would just keep driving it up. I kind of wanted to arc around it, you know what I mean? And so I was like, all right, I'll just head left straight to the source. I get about 15 yards away from where that happened. I'm not thinking about anything, not even thinking about what just happened. Something just said, do not take another step. It'd be very bad if you. And I can't even say that differently. It feels like a sin, like a bad sin to say it any other way. Then do not take another step. It'll be very bad if you do. So I got about 15 yards away, going straight directly to it in mid stride. The same thing. Boom. It's in there out of nowhere. Do not take another step. It'll be very bad if you do. In mid stride, planted my foot, and I'm like, I look around. I'm not seeing what I'm hoping to see. So, all right, I've got to get back to the hotel and check in. And so now I actually pay attention to the ground. There was no reason to before. I wasn't going to see tracks. I just wasn't. But as soon as I turned around and started paying attention to the ground, everything's covered in leaves. Everything. Down to trees, down saplings. Everything's covered in leaves. They're buried under these leaves. But I started seeing these rocks that were cantaloupe to dinner plate size on top of the leaves, where everything else is buried under the leaves. And I look at a couple of the rocks, like, this is weird, and then I kind of look up, don't see anything, take a few more steps, see some more rocks. And they're just big old cantaloupe-sized rocks or flat dinner plate sized rocks. And so now I'm like thinking, it's not a rock slide. There would be mud, there would be marks, there would be trails of something coming down, there'd be disturbance. These rocks are dry on top, but wet on bottom, but the leaves are dry on top, like like they had been there over the night or something, and the dew was still in them or whatnot. So after finding about 12 or 15 of these things, and then seeing one leaning up against the tree, so if I'm facing up the hill, that way is the mountain. The tree is like this. This way is this is the mountain. This way is my truck. The tree's this way. The mountain's that way. There's rock at the base of the tree, just leaning against it, and it's one of those flat, like sandstone rocks, but it's about dinner plate size, just leaning against the tree. So I made my way down and just thought about it, and like in that time frame, I just got news that a friend of mine in the music scene back home in Illinois had passed away, and so I was bummed. I was bummed about that. I was thinking about that, but I was thinking about this, and I got to the hotel, and I was thinking about went to the post party thing, and that actually comes a little bit later, that picture. But went to the ceremony. I did not win, but I was forever grateful to be nominated. Out of 29,000 songs submitted, my song was nominated. To me, that was success enough. And so I went home, but the whole ride home, I kept thinking, wait a minute, there's all these big rocks on top of everything that should be covered. That don't make any sense. Everything else is covered with leaf litter. There's not some Gomer Pyle Bigfoot walking around with the armful of stones, stumbling, and they're falling out everywhere, So I drove back home, and I thought about it. I'm like, no, this is something's there regularly. Something's there regularly, and I think, what else could it be? It doesn't make any sense that a bear would be carrying rocks. It doesn't make any sense that humans would go up the side of a hill just dropping random stones with no signs of human up there. No bottles, no cans, no garbage. It's almost as silly as, sometimes things are more sillier than thinking that Bigfoot did it. And it ate at me. That's all I could think about for months. It's all I could frickin' think about. I couldn't think about anything. They're there. I know they're there. There's a cave system. There's got to be a cave system. They're there. This thing yelled at me when I yelled. And that's another thing I want to address. When I was a kid, when the thing yelled at us when we were running around the trailer, we would have never known it was there had it not vocalized at us. It didn't have to. We would have never known it was there. This thing, I would have never known it was there had it vocalized at me. And I don't understand that. And some people think, maybe once you've experienced one like I did, or however you experience it, that you're marked or whatnot. I don't know that. I don't know that to be true. Maybe if they can see in different spectrums, people say that we all have different energy and different aura, different light. I was always telling my buddies, maybe mine's pink, and it was like, that guy's a sissy. We can mess with him. He doesn't seem much of a threat, But it made me think, why? I would have never known it was there had it not vocalized. But don't ask me why I went up. Just I had to go, otherwise, because I knew I wouldn't get another opportunity. That's why I went up. But a month later, I went back. A month later, I parked in the same exact spot, just like the picture shows, where I parked here and I yelled there. But I got out of my truck. But this time I was prepared. I got out of my truck. My passenger side is against the sidewalk. My driver's side is up against the mountain. I walked around to the back of my truck, got up on the sidewalk. I faced the mountain with my phone recorded this time. I wasn't going to let this opportunity pass by if something happened. I didn't think anything was going to happen. But I did that same exact yell. And as soon as I finished it, second, two, I got a whoop back. But it wasn't a whoop, it was a whoo. It was from high to low. I'm freaking out. I'm like, yes, and I've got it. I stopped my phone. I got it. You ain't I've got it. I've got what I've needed. Everything is lined up on what I was theorizing. They're here. This is not a place of passing through. This many stones on top of everything that should be buried, it's here. So my truck's still running. I go around to my driver door. It's still open, by the way, and my truck's still running. I get in my truck with my door still open, driver's side facing the mountain where I just got whooped at, and I'm putting my hiking boots on, and my knees are out the driver's side door on the floorboard as I'm putting one shoe on, tying the shoe. I put the other shoe on and tying my hiking boot, and I said up here, I said in my head, I said to myself, this wasn't no thought projection or anything. I said to myself, I just drove 12 and a half freaking hours. There's nothing that's going to stop me from going up this mountain. And I said that up here. I thought it. I said it in my head as I'm tying my shoes. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I just drove 12 and a half hours, and there's nothing that's going to stop me from going up this mountain. And from complete silence, there was this giant crunch. And it sounded like something took a big oak tree and swung it against another big oak tree. It just, you could, from silence to crunch, you could hear bark. You could just hear the crunch of the tree, just crunch. It reverberated. I could feel the vibration just at the edge of my truck. I said that up here, man. I just drove 12 and a half freaking hours. And there's nothing going to stop me from crossing this road. That happened a couple seconds later, and I never crossed that road. I stayed in my truck that whole night. I drove 12 and a half hours. I used the resources I had, and at the time it wasn't much. I had a baby monitor that had night vision on it, right? And I put that baby monitor night vision camera on the side of my truck, and I sat in the back seat, because the back seats have tinted windows, factory tinted. They're dark. You ain't seeing in those windows, especially at night. And I'm staring at this monitor to see what I could see. I have my driver's window down, and I'm hearing steps across the street in the leaves. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow steps. They go this way, they come back this way. They go this way, they come back, like it's just pacing, but slow. And I'm starting to get nervous because I can't see anything. So I get out of my truck with my camera monitor in hand, and that baby monitor is only picking me up from about 2 feet from it. It's so black out there that there's not enough light on that mountainside to give it any other light. And so that IR was so weak that it wasn't picking me up until it was too late. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I started really, really getting nervous, because as you look at that picture on the screen, what just made that crunch earlier when I got there, that sounded like it was strong enough to pick up a fully mature oak tree and smash it against another fully oak tree, could have flipped my 1500 Ram over that side of that cliff that I'd never been seen again. And all that I kept thinking about is, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not going up there. There's no way I'm going up there. I'm not a brave guy, but I'll do some stupid stuff. A lot of time when I'm out researching it by myself at 2 a.m, I'm still full of anxiety, still nervous, but I'm never gonna know unless I go. But I never got 4 feet away from my truck from the time that crunch happened. And when I got there, it was probably 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I sat and looked at the hillside and waited and waited and waited, and I was overwhelmed with what had happened, because when you say in your mind, when you think, I just drove 12 and a half hours. There's nothing that's going to stop me from going up there. And something replies to you with a sense of force without saying anything and stops you. I didn't know what to do. And because of that, it really, really messed with me about first. I started thinking, okay, without delving into the supernatural or the other abilities that these things may or may not have, I couldn't put any sense to that. It didn't make any sense, and it still bothers me to this day. When you think something and something replies to what you're thinking, it's not coincidence. So I never went back, but I drove home that night. I was planning on staying there for 3 days. I left that morning at like 5:30 in the morning. The following morning, I got there like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then the next morning, I was laying in my truck just too scared. I literally left the mountainside at like 2:30 in the morning and went to the nearest gas station to sleep under the lights because I was in a way that I didn't think I was safe unless somebody could see me. Now, when I went back home, still struggling with what turned out to be a wasted trip in a way. I mean, it confirmed that something was there. I had to go back, but I could not go back by myself. I could not go back by myself. I could have, I just would have never crossed the road. So I went back a year later with my buddy Bobby, my bandmate, my best friend, my roommate. He's in our group, Bigfoot Forest Giants. And he went with me, and we went up the same path, but it was raining. Both times I went, the first time it was not raining, it was actually nice. This time it was raining and it was terrible. You go up a mountain and a cliff when it's raining, there's like a parade of ducks going by right now. This is great. I don't know if you guys can you see all of them?
Like being at my house.
Oh yeah.
Can you see them all?
Yep.
Sorry, but we went and it was a rough go to get up that hillside wet. And then when you showed the pictures of the rocks, the two rocks that were pulled out of the holes, those rocks were pulled out of holes that they had sat in for a while, and those were softball cantaloupe size rocks. Those, it could have been a bear. I'm not saying that was Bigfoot related, but those were moved. There's another, that rock right there. Can you enlarge that a little bit? Oh yeah, that's with my yeah, that's with where the hole was. But as we ventured up and up, and we got to a spot, Bobby was a little to my left, which would have been back east, and I came across this downed tree that was it was laying over the peak. So about 2/3 of it was on the ground, and about 1/3 of it was hanging over the edge. Can you show the other picture, the other view of it? Yeah. So I came from. There's a big piece. That rock is about the size of a coffee table. It's busted in half. But the size that the rock that's on the tree. Do you have the picture of the rock that's on the tree all by itself?
Yep.
That rock is about 5.5 inches thick, I would say, and that's probably about, gosh, if I had to guess, 15 inches across. That is a big old hefty rock laying on a downed tree, right where I thought the tree smashed into a tree. But when we got there, this is what we found. A big rock busted in half. The other half is on the other side of the root ball. And if you look around that tree, there's nowhere that rock came from. There's nowhere around that tree that rock came from. It was busted in half. And so when I seen that, it was like, okay, something up here is throwing boulders and not swinging trees at other trees. But when we went there, we didn't have any bad vibe, anything that told us that they had been there since or whatnot. But to the right of that tree, when you're looking at the tree, probably about 15 yards away, there's a spot where it's like a shelf, like you're flat, and all of a sudden there's a shelf, and then over here there's a bunch of shrubs growing up, and it's like 6 foot high, 7 foot high, and there was no way to get up on that shelf unless we had a step ladder and a hatchet to chop that stuff down, because that shrub was all the way on the edge. And I feel like the next time I go there, I have to explore going up there. It was getting really, really tough to navigate up there because of the wetness and the rain. We slid a lot. So we didn't get to spend as much time that we wanted to up there. It rained for 2.5 days when we went. But I need to, I got to go back to this spot. I think, John, you said this place is only like, what, 4 hours, 4.5 hours from you?
Yeah, I think it's like 4 hours for me. So I'm game.
And I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain to anybody the saying in your head, thinking, yeah, I just drove 12.5 freaking hours. There's nothing that's going to stop me from going up there.
Can you
and
go
that
back?
Giant crunch happens.
Can you go back to when you were taking the steps, and then you had the
thought?
The thought was it an intrusive thought from someone not to take a step, or was it just your brain?
No, it was not. It was not my thought. I was thinking about and looking and actively analyzing and actively taking in information of what's there and looking around and I'm looking for movement. I'm not thinking about anything. And when you're out researching, you're looking around, and it was in the middle of what I was doing. Boom, don't take another step. It'll be very bad if you do.
Was it in a specific voice?
No, it was a thought. No, it was a thought. It was a thought that I can describe as not my own. And I've had several people, that's Bigfoot, mind speaking. Like, it may have been a guardian angel, for all I know, saying, don't go another step. You're in a bad place right now.
That's a definite possibility.
It may have been a spirit guide. It may have been a sixth sense. I don't know, but it wasn't from me, because I wasn't thinking, which is pretty common for me. I wasn't thinking safety. I wasn't thinking self-preservation. I was thinking get the answers I came for. Mm-hmm. I was thinking figure out this problem. You just got roared at. Figure out what did it. Lay eyes on it. That's what you want. That's why you're doing this in the first place. Go lay eyes on it. I didn't have anything to record it with when I went up there. I had my phone with me, but it was in my pocket. I just wanted to go up there, and I knew what was there. Surely it's going to leave a trace. It sounded like a giant humanoid caveman with 2 separate vocal cords, low and medium, and it was just like rah. And it was way louder. If anybody knows anything about music or bass, it takes a lot of air to make the bass, and bass moves a lot of air. Human lungs don't have big enough lungs to move that kind of bass, to make that kind of bass, and to forcefully project it out to where you can feel it 60 yards away.
Right.
And it was like I'm doing something and somebody else gives you a thought. And you know how, like, when we're talking behind stage and I'm constantly cutting you guys off because I'm really bad about it, but we're thinking. I'm constantly interrupting people. I'm constantly interrupting people while we're talking, but it's like we're all thinking, but we're interrupting our thoughts by thinking. But it's just, like I said, it was, and even then, like I said, it almost feels like a sin to say it any other way, but do not take another step. It'll be very bad if you do.
Well, that's not a. Now we've all heard that in the in the Bigfoot world, and the mind speak is a hypothesis. I've heard it from other people and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I've never experienced anything like that myself,
Neither have
but
I.
even in general, without Bigfoot involved, there's probably thousands of stories of people in situations where they're doing something and then they hear a voice or they have a intrusive thought that says, "Hey, don't do this," and come to find out, it winds up
Saving their life.
it saved their life or it protected them.
Yeah.
I was watching I watched the Sean Ryan podcast, and he interviews prior military guys, and he was talking to a guy that talked about being on a raid. He's standing at a wall for whatever reason. I can't remember whether he heard it or it was like yours where it was the thought, but he had to move for whatever reason. He could not stand there, and it was like he was told to move. Next thing that happens is a ID goes off, completely blows this wall out and collapses this massive concrete ceiling on top of his buddy right where he was standing. And it was a super profound event. And that happens a lot with people just in general, not even, it may not have anything to do with Sasquatch itself.
Right.
But
absolutely.
It's definitely, I believe in that stuff. I believe in, I don't necessarily know how any of it, if it is at all, which I haven't seen it yet, connected to Sasquatch, but I do know there is another side to our reality, at least a spiritual side, that has a tendency to help us out every once in a while. I've experienced that myself. So, there
has to be something protecting us. Some of us, maybe everybody's got something protecting us. Because, for example, and this is off topic, it's just like what you're saying. Like we've all drove long distances. I used to live from Illinois, and we would come down to Florida, and I would be just south of Marion, getting ready to cross into Kentucky, still in Illinois, and next thing you know, I'm in Georgia, and I can't tell you anything about Kentucky or Tennessee.
Good Lord.
Don't even remember looking at the road. Next thing you know, I'm like, Georgia, what the, what? It's weird. There's things like, why am I not dead?
It's not
if
a good
I don't
feeling.
remember the last two states, is your subconscious really taken over,
Yeah.
But the mind thing, I've never, ever claimed it to be mind speak because it was not a voice. It was a thought that interrupted my thoughts. And it was a pronounced enough thought that interrupted my thoughts that made my body listen in mid-stride, planted that foot, and I never even inched forward. I went to my left, 15 yards away, same exact phrase, take another step. It'll be very bad if you do. In mid-stride, I stopped, and I called it quits.
Well, hey, I think our instinct is the number one. You can read all the books you want. You can be the best tracker in the world. You can have all the information you need. But if you don't have good instinct, I think it makes things very difficult. I think that's the number one thing. I know that's what that drives me a lot in the things I do. It's just instinct.
Sorry, I got a squirrel barking
like
at the
getting
ducks.
Attacked by a monkey.
There's a squirrel barking at the ducks, or he's barking at the ducks, or he's barking at me.
Squirrel saying, "Don't take another step, dude."
Right.
That's my acorn.
Right.
Well, that's pretty profound, man.
Yeah.
And it, unfortunately, that makes me want to pack up and go straight to that mountain.
I'll tell you exactly where it's at. Like I said, I've openly said where it's at. It's not public. It's not private property. It's public. I can't lay claims to something that doesn't belong to me. Right. And if somebody else can go out there and get answers and bring it. Right.
Not like they're going to steal your Bigfoot
or my mountain. Right.
Oh man, that's crazy. It's Sounds like
But
you
when we
have
were,
somebody watching over you, you know?
yeah, when we were talking about the whoop, where instead of it going whoop, it was whoo. Now I had to take that back and put it into my recording software that I use for my music, and I had to put splits where I wanted to lower the volume, like the noise of me and everything else, and raise the volume of isolate the volume of the spots where I wanted to raise. And when I was doing that, there was a grunt in there that I didn't hear, but it's on that recording. There was a woo, oh,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh,
and
yeah, that's very common. We have there's something else that we've noticed too. I've had it happen here, and we've had it happen at the happy place. One time was when I had the growl out here, and I'm recording. I say hello, and then it goes. Roar. Well, before all that, there's a
like
like
a lip pop.
every couple, I don't know, every 10 seconds it does that. I did not hear it at all in person. Uh, the camera picked it up, and then at the happy place that night we had the rocks thrown at our vehicle and or my vehicle, and then they were grunting and vocalizing behind us during that whole time. Even when nothing was going on, that same lip pop was going on. Like every couple minutes it would just go just out of nowhere, and we didn't hear it.
Yeah,
I never heard it the whole time. So there's a couple things that get picked up that we evidently aren't hearing, or they're too low, I guess, maybe to hear or whatever. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
actually
When
could use, you could probably help me out with learning to do some of the vocal work a little better. You know, I am novice at best,
as
and
am
we
I.
could
Yeah,
definitely get a lot better. I know that.
yeah. Like when me and Richard went out, and you had him on a show, Richard Farabee. We went to a
Yep.
place where we do some research, and as we were leaving, just as we were about to break the tree line to leave, when we started getting grunts from behind us, it sounded like a gorilla. It was like, ooh, 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 ooh.
He
Happened
sent
like
me
10
that.
times. It happened like 10 times. Now, when we did that, I brought it home and I put it in my Presonus Studio One software for recording music and tracks and whatnot. And everything that makes a noise has a wave sound wave. Now you could hear these grunts. They gave no wave sound, no sound wave. They gave no waveform during the sound. I even isolated the grunts, which was really tough to do because I was making all kinds of racket in the leaves. I had a cheap parabolic on, headphones on, and I'm just moving my feet around, and all you hear is, and so I had to isolate the grunts. Even when I isolated the grunts and put the split here and the split here and the grunts in the middle, you could hear it, but it didn't register on the waveform. So
Right.
it means that if that Sasquatch or whatever it was that was making that grunt, I mean, it wasn't a pig, it wasn't a dog, it wasn't a deer, and it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a wolf, it wasn't a raccoon, because nothing sounds like that, but a gorilla did. That's what we both thought.
Yeah, I heard it.
Um, there was no waveform, so our software apparently isn't set up for recognizing or registering that frequency on the waveform.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something I need to learn more about. I mean, I've gotten to where I enjoy audio. Well, not as much as video, but I've gotten to where I really enjoy audio, like getting a good quality audio. It's super cool, super interesting. But fellas, I'm gonna have to wrap it up. We got soccer practice, but you guys can continue on. But I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yep.
I knew it was
Yep.
going to be a
Thanks
good
for having me.
story.
Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we'll be having you on again. I know you and Richard both have a lot more stories,
Oh, yeah.
and y'all are more than welcome to come on. And we're going to be doing,
And Johnny,
we're not going to say when, and we're not going to say where, but we're going to be doing some joint ventures.
That's right.
But it's going to be one of those things where we let people know after we do it, or maybe right in the middle of it. We don't want to, again, me personally, I'm pulling back on the amount of information I give out. I've gotten a little too mouthy and a little too comfortable. you know. So I got to pull back on that a little bit. But I appreciate it, man. Captain Joe, I'll talk to you later on.
All righty.
And
See you, Johnny.
everybody else, I'll talk to you later. Appreciate it.
Later, bud.
All right, see you. So Jimmie, before we leave out, I did want to ask, what's next and new for you guys down there in Florida? You know, you and Richard, your team.
I don't really know that we got anything really new going on. I'm sure we've talked about it, but I have the memory of a stick.
Well, you got your you got the YouTube channel up.
Yeah, we have the BFFG. It stands for Bigfoot Forest Giants on YouTube. We're trying to promote it more so. You know, YouTube, you have to have 1,000 subscribers. It doesn't cost anything to be a subscriber. You just hit that little red bar that says subscribe.
That's right. Yep.
And once you get to 1,000, it allows us to record live in the field.
That's right.
And bring, if we come across something very interesting, we come across some evidence or whatever, we can show it to you as we see it. You can see it untouched, unchanged, unedited, unmolested. You know, whatever word you want to choose, it won't be missed. You can see it as we see it.
Yeah.
And we can bring you along with it. If we have an encounter going down, man, wouldn't it be great to show the world right then and there that something's happening? There's something over there behind that tree, and I'm fixing to walk over there to get it moving. But we can't do that unless we have 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And that's why we want, you know, if you don't ever watch a single thing from our channel, but you want to help out, just hit that subscribe button. That will help us get whatever we find to you in real time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'll allow us to, you know, have you there. And, you know, the good thing about that too is if we're ever in places where we can do Facebook Lives as well if we've got signals, and we can actually bring you in, because it'll say, you know, bring them into the video, you know. So if we're watching and we're seeing something and somebody's watching, we can invite you into the video and you can see as we're seeing, and you're interacting with us on a personal level, not just behind the scenes.
Yep.
You know, none of this is about us. See, I'm not trying to prove Bigfoot's real. I didn't know he's real. You know, I just recently heard something that stuck with me as soon as I saw it. Knowing is better than believing. You know, I had one land 5 feet from me when it fell out of a tree. I know the real. I don't need the Patterson-Gimlin film. I don't need all those other films. I don't need all those other evidence. I know the real. But I want to have another encounter, physically, visual encounter, so as an adult, I can move past this trauma as a child, because when I start talking about my childhood encounter, I relive it. I go through the fears of a child. I start to tremble. I start to shake. My voice starts to crack. I get goosebumps.
Yep.
Sometimes I start to cry. And hopefully, as an adult, I can analyze what I'm looking at. I can look at detail. As a kid, I didn't want to look at it. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this to prove them. I know they're there. There are laws out there that say that they're real. In Florida, there's laws that say they're real.
So real quick, Jimmie, someone asked, you know, you guys have a channel. Just tell everyone you guys' Facebook and YouTube channel again, so they can go look you guys up, give you a follow.
Yeah, okay, my gimbal just died on me. Our YouTube channel, Richard made, is BFFG, stands for Bigfoot Forest Giants.
Yes, sir.
And our Facebook page is it's either Bigfoot Forest Giants or Forest Giants. I don't even remember. I've changed it so many times. I think it's Bigfoot Forest Giants.
Yeah. And who are all the members? I know
all the members on our team.
You and Richard.
Me and Richard Farabee, my buddy, best friend, roommate, bandmate, Bobby White.
Bobby.
And then we have Mike Velez. He's in New York right now.
Okay.
He came down and was interacted and was a part of the 168 documentary that we did with Carrie Arnold before Carrie passed away.
Yeah.
All great guys, all down to earth guys. No BS anything. We debunk things before we even put anything towards it as a potential evidence. Meaning we don't look at it to debunk it. We look at it and see, could it possibly be this? Could it possibly be that? Could it possibly be this? What can we compare it to if nothing else matches and human beings match and something that is hominoid, human-like, anthropoid matches? Does it make more sense that a person out here with 15-inch toes is walking into water moccasin infested swamps, leaving prints and making structures at 2 miles off the nearest dirt path? Or does it make more sense that something else wild out here with human-like feet is making these prints? It's more absurd to think that there's a person out there walking around barefoot in the swamp 2 miles off of the nearest path than something else that thousands and thousands and thousands of people have seen. It's something that every Native American tribe in the United States and Canada has said since the beginning of their record of keeping records on walls and skins and totem poles, that these things exist before we came here from Europe and ran them back in the woods with our guns.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, man. And Jimmie, man, I really appreciate you coming back on, sharing your story there in Tennessee. And I know Jonny's looking forward to collaborating with you and your team and whatnot. And I look forward to hearing some of the stories, maybe even getting a chance to break away, get out with you guys at some point.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I encourage everyone that tunes in, listens to us at the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade to also, subscribe and follow everything that over the Bigfoot Forest Giants site. I saw some of the videos that you guys have posted. And it's some good stuff. Richard's always sharing some great information.
Richard's very active. He's very active, which is great. I was until my daughter got diagnosed with autism, and I've been more family oriented, time spending, getting her in a routine of dad being there, being involved.
Definitely.
Because one of my kids is 16 and one of them is 11, and they could care less if I'm home. I want her to see the routine of dad being there.
Yeah, that's important.
Getting used to things that she's not comfortable with right now. I'm not out there as much as I used to be, but Richard's really knocking it out, man.
Yeah.
Also, anybody, I know that I don't know if some people may be here that didn't watch the first time I was on. My childhood encounter was aired on the Travel Channel's These Woods Are Haunted, Season 2, Episode 7, titled We're Goners. Now, if any of you out there have seen that episode and you have questions that you want to hear from me about or talk about, reach out, man. I'm an open book. I'll talk about it. I'll tell you. If you've ever wondered something about that episode, I've been blessed to meet a lot of great people in this community. I've met some really terrible people in this community too. I'm an open book. I've got nothing to hide. I've got nothing to gain. And when you start talking about a Bigfoot encounter, you got everything to lose when it comes to personal. My neighbors back here, man, they're great people.
Yeah.
They're great people.
Yeah.
I told them one day about Bigfoot. We don't hardly see him. Don't hardly get talked to. Yeah, I mean, it was, but I don't blame them. Is what a lot of people have to understand is in order to accept that these things are real, you have to change your reality. And if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, it's too late. You're set in your ways. It's too late to change your reality until that thing steps in front of you.
Yeah.
It's easier to say, okay, honey, step away from the psycho, than it is to humor it, look into it, do a little research from the computer, see if Bigfoot was real, maybe there's a small community out there. It's a freaking huge community out here.
Oh yeah.
I encourage people to, if you've got the interest, and if you're a non-believer, that's great. I understand. There's so many of people out there that were non-believers until it walked across in front of them, until it threw a rock at their tent, until they seen it chasing a deer down, until they seen it grab a hog, until they seen it grab a chicken out of the chicken coop. Until a group of people seen them together, and nobody could say it was anything but what they seen. Sometimes it takes seeing it for yourself to believe it. Just if you don't believe, keep it in your mind that they may be real. Because if you do not, and you're in a situation where you are now confronted with one, it could ruin your life if you blow it off that they're not there. Because it is said that some people have committed suicide because this was too hard to live with, knowing that something was out there, and everybody thought they would be crazy.
Yeah.
Keep in your mind that they may be real. If you don't believe in them, it will affect you a lot differently and a more positive way, hopefully, than when you do come across one.
Yeah. This past week I went over to North Carolina to go visit an Army buddy of mine and one of my best friends, and he always jokes with me about the Bigfoot thing, and and he'll out me in front of people that we're meeting with for business and stuff all the time. Like, oh yeah, and Joe's Joe's into Bigfoot. He's seen Bigfoot and stuff like that, right? So last week was the full moon, right? Big blue moon, and I know there's a lot of a lot of photos people took of the moon and put on their Facebook pages and whatnot. Well, one night I said, man, I'm gonna get my spotting scope out. So this is my same spotting scope that I used on the rifle range when I had my first encounter, right? I set up on a tripod on our front porch and had my son come out and my wife, and we're looking at the moon. I'm zooming in, and you're seeing craters on the moon, show up this big, right? And my wife's just amazed, like, wow, man, that thing's powerful. I'm like, yeah. So I went and got this phone scope adapter. So basically, it's an adapter that fits on your phone and it allows you to,
yeah.
Yep, allows you to click on to the eyepiece of the spotting scope, whatnot. Anyways, took some real good pictures of the moon, and I had it on my phone, and so we're in North Carolina. I showed it to my buddy. I'm like, man, check out this picture of the moon I got last week, and he's like, oh man, he goes, dude, those are phenomenal, and and then I showed him like the zoomed in pictures, and he couldn't believe it. He goes, man, look at the detail, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, I said that's the same spotting scope I saw Bigfoot at, 1,600 yards on a firing range. I said, now you tell me I didn't see what I saw. Because dude,
yeah,
I'm showing you pictures, through a cell phone picture, through a spotting scope, and the crater on the moon is like that big, right? I said, yeah, 1,600 yards with my spotting scope maxed out, right? And watching this bipedal, large creature thing walking, I know what I saw.
Right.
The other eyewitness. The safety officer, he saw it too. Now, he didn't have as big as a spotting scope as I did, but he could still see it. So, it's one of those things. But man, I know what I saw. I know what I believe. There are folks out there that kind of, when I talk about it, they may be non-believers, but then at the same time,
it's okay, yeah.
It is, at the same time, they also they're not too arrogant to try to shoot holes into my story, because they know the type of person I am and my character.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, if he saw one, and maybe there's something to it,
Yeah.
And it gains a little bit of interest that way. But unfortunately, like you're in the case of your neighbors, where they just kind of all of a sudden they shy
They're great
away
people. Yeah.
They may shy away from you, because like, oh man, what's that guy on, or whatever, that just shows that there's room for education and educating, people. And then I hate to be them if they're driving down some back road in Florida and happen to see one crossing the road or whatnot, and all of a sudden, they're gonna have to come talk to you about it.
Yeah, what I do when I get, because I've had this happen. This happened to me at work with I'll get a couple of the
Hmm.
yahoos at work that knew that what I did. They knew that I had a documentary. They found out I was on TV or whatever,
Hmm.
and they kind of tried to give me a little bit of slack. Well, the government would know. The government would know. And what I would do is I'm like, you know what? You're not a researcher, but you can be today. What do you
Yeah.
mean? Get out your phone. And what I'll do, that's now tell this to everybody live. Get out your phone. If you're listening to me, you can still listen to me, and you can open up another window, and you can Google search Lower Suwannee, Suwanee, hunting regulations. Okay? And when you Google it, when you do this, the very first site that pops up is a government site,
That's right.
us.gov site. Okay? And then you click on that link. It's going to ask you to open it or download it or whatever. And you open it, and it's going to show you the hunting regulations for the Lower Suwannee area in Florida. And it's going to give you a map. But in the hog section, in this hunting regulation area, now the
That's
states and the
that's
government
right.
does not mess around when it comes to guns at all, period. Hunting included. They don't.
Yeah.
They're serious about that.
Yeah.
In the hog section, it's going to say in the very last sentence of that paragraph, hunting hog regulations, there is no hunting or taking of swamp or skunk apes.
Yeah.
That's what they're called down here in the South,
Yeah.
in the hog section. And now,
Yeah.
the reason that I believe it's in the hog section is because the hog section regulations don't change. You can kill them annoying little piglets all year round.
All year round, day or
So
night.
people don't.
That's
You
right.
don't need to look. You don't need to look and see if the regulations change for the hogs. So where's going to be the best place to soft release this? And so when somebody ends up killing one, they're going to say, "Look, we got laws and regulations on hunting these things. It's out there, and they've got you. You no longer have a body now because they come and take it."
Yeah.
And there are states all over this country, 30-something states, that have a law against killing an unknown animal. Now, shouldn't we know everything that's out there already in our forest? What else is unknown?
Yeah.
In Florida, 1977, they passed a law called the HB 58 Act, the Anthropoid Act, in 1977, and then they amended it in 1978. And I have the documents of the notes from when they did the meeting and talked about it and passed it. Representative Knuckles, and they called it HB 58. I believe it's been sequestered. It's called the Anthropoid Act. There is no harassing, trapping, hunting, molesting, but molesting in the 70s meant something different. Basically, don't harass, don't bother.
Yeah.
They also put in there, you can't pursue this for personal gain either, this law. It's called the HB 58. And they even had representatives from Louisiana, I think it was the governor, sent a letter to the House of Representatives with photos saying, "We know that some of you guys may not believe it, so here's some proof these things are real. And here's a picture of one." And it was taken serious, and it was put in law. But I believe it has been sequestered, but I have copies of those notes that were taken. These aren't my notes. These were from somewhere, I think West Palm, came from West Palm Courthouse or something like that, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But heck, I can share those with you guys. You can read the conversations from the leader to everybody else in the group. Representative this and representative that, answering a question, this representative replying to the question. One of the sheriffs wanted to put an amendment in that law saying that we can treat them like deer and just shoot all the males.
Yeah.
And he also wanted part of the law to be amended so if he showed up on scene and there was one, he couldn't go to jail for killing one if he needed to put one down. And then one of the representatives say, "Well, from what I hear, it's going to be pretty hard to tell. You're going to have to get pretty close to one to tell if it's a male or not." And so they shot the sheriff's idea down in this conversation of notes that the House of Representatives had. So the government knows, local governments know, Ohio, the state of Ohio, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, that's their FWC, that's their Fish and Game. They did a 5-part podcast. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources did a 5-part podcast about Sasquatch and grassman, what's called grassman in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask about that. So November, and I think on the last our first podcast.
You can go to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources YouTube page and find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up, and then I'm gonna ask some questions. You know, we're helping put on a Veterans Hunt up in Lima, Ohio, in November, and so obviously, you know, it'll be filmed for one of the outdoor hunting shows and whatnot. But having to get all these veterans, you know, their licenses and whatnot, you know, to be able to hunt in the areas that they are. There's some state employees that are part of this thing. So I'm gonna ask them about this stuff too. So, but man, Jimmie, it was a pleasure having you back on again, man.
It's great being here.
Yep, I hope we can do it again too. Maybe get you and Richard both, man, and you know, and then share some notes, you know, especially with things that are going on over at Jonny Twobears' place, man. It's
Yeah.
He's got some crazy things that happen right outside his back door, you know. So, yeah. But man, thank you for joining me this evening, man. And folks, if you haven't had a chance to, I encourage you to go look at the Bigfoot Forest Giants Facebook and their YouTube channel and subscribe to it. We want to be able to get them over 1,000 subscribers. That way, they can start doing some live feeds from the field, and then you know, we can just be another set of eyes watching them. So, thank you, Jimmie.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm glad you guys invited me back. I'm glad to be here the first time. You know, not that this really matters. It's not really pertaining to the topic, but if anybody was interested, my Jimmie Barr, JimmieBarr, my music is out there on iTunes, Amazon, all those online places. They're just country. It's country rock. I'm a rock singer trying to sing country. But they're great songs, great lyrics and whatnot. And my daughter, I had mentioned, who's autistic,
Her book.
She inspired me to write a book. Just she didn't do it, but me thinking about her did. It made me just this silly, overjoyed happiness thing of, hey, you should write a children's book. So I wrote a book called, her name is Carly. So I wrote a book called Carly the Princess Dragon, because dragons are way cooler than bunnies and unicorns. Like it kept me engaged, you know, writing about
how do you spell Carly?
Carlee. And I would, you know, I have given away more of these books than I've sold. So I would suggest anybody that has a little girl, a little boy, a granddaughter, a niece, you know, this book would be great, and it's at Barnes and Noble, and it's on Amazon and whatnot. But to be honest with you, it's cheaper on Amazon. Don't pay the full price. Don't pay the full price at Barnes and Noble. Go to Amazon and get them. Sometimes you can practically find them half off. I'm not making any money off of these things.
You said Carly the Princess Dragon?
Correct. Carlee. You know, take one to your pediatrician's office and leave it there for the kids to read. Take one to the nearest children's hospital that you go to, or take one to church and the daycare. If you work at a daycare, you've got friends at a daycare, take one. Basically, it's about a little dragon who was born and learns all these kinds of things that she can do on the very first day she was born. Because she has a magical horn. She can be whatever she wants to be by using her horn. Is that a euphemism or not? Euphemism? Who knows? You know, I haven't decided on the second part, you know, but it's a great little cute story, and we're really proud of it. My kids and my wife and I were all involved on the designing of the dragons. The family unit matches our family unit: mom and dad, 2 older brothers, and a baby sister. Riker got to pick out the color of the dragon. It would be his age. Landon got to pick out the color of the dragon, his age. My wife picked out the purple dragon. It's even got a beauty mark right where my wife has a beauty mark, the dragon, the mama dragon. So, you know, we put a little bit of personal stuff into it, you know. You know, it's not House of Dragons, you know, from HBO with, Game of Thrones, but it's a cute little book. And, you know, like I said, I've given more away than I've sold, because if nobody reads it, nobody's going to see it. So, you know, again, I'm not trying to promote it, but I have an opportunity to let people enjoy it.
No.
I don't do this on my own pages. I don't really promote it, because I had one person say, you seem kind of conceited about your work. And it kind of
Not
stuck
at
with
all.
me. It kind of
Not at
stuck
all.
with me. Like,
Oh.
yeah, I was proud of what I done, but I wasn't forcing it on anybody. But,
No.
yeah, I mean, if you want one, go to Amazon. You can get them on Amazon for almost half off.
Good deal. Well, thank you, Jimmie. Well, I'm going to make sure
Absolutely.
and look that up. Thank you so much, and you have a good
You bet.
evening. And then,
Absolutely, you too.
yep, and we'll be back on again some other time.
Right on to the non-believers, the ones driving driving. She's driving and listening and whatever. It was
Yeah,
great to have you.
Kristen. Yeah, my friend.
Great to hear you.
Yeah, my friend Kristen. She was the former chief of staff at Grunt Style Apparel back when I was a consultant with them. So yeah, I'm glad she was able to listen and hear your cool
Yeah.
story. So
That's awesome.
all right,
All right, bud. Thanks. I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
You
All right,
bet.
bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Great job.